Welcome back, adventurers. Today we're diving deep into the most played cards from Welcome to Rathe, the set that started it all in Flesh and Blood. As a new player, I've been shifting through some deck lists, looking at marketplace data, and generally what I see on the forums, so I can bring together a review of the most impactful cards. So no fluff, just the serious ones that get played, and also some of the fan favorites. We'll be focusing on the fabled, the legendaries, because, well, these are fabled and legendary cards. How awesome are they? I can't review all of the cards, but I can try to get my best information out there so that others can learn from it. Honestly, it's all about this learning journey for me and experiencing the cards for the first time. So let's get into this now. Let's start off by looking at these legendary and fabled cards. Literally, equipping any of these can take your deck to new heights, whether it's sustaining life, generating resources, or dominating in combat. I believe that everyone knows this card, Heart of Fendel. This is probably one of the most, if not the most iconic card in the whole of Flesh and Blood. This fabled card is such a sought after card that it can go into 500 to 1000 depending on conditions, but if you have it graded even further, again, it is a pretty much epic card. I understand that this is played in many different heroes' deck, and if it goes from mid-range to something slower in strategy. Generally, people want to play this because you get that little bit of life gain, but the resource generation makes it a perfect for any person that wants to outlast their opponent, and you want these fatigue strategies where life points matter and getting that resource counts is essential to having that slow play style. Honestly, it's going to keep those control players alive longer and providing that resource flexibility. This, again, is an iconic card for a reason, so... Now let's get into the second most iconic card, Fandel's Spring Tunic. Honestly, I've been playing very limited amount of time, and I already know that I would likely use this in my Verdance deck, so you're pretty much gonna see this in so many decks. It's just due to its constant resource generation, lots of mid-range, lots of control, and even some aggressive builds play this card. It provides free resources every 3 turns, and it just helps with that maintaining tempo. Even in longer games, you're gonna get so much value from this. I can understand why it's ranging from like 150 upwards, depending on its condition and print. This, to me, is a staple in most decks. It's just so good value. I can't say any more. I think, again, even my limited experience, I know this is a fantastic card. Now let's try to find some of those ninjas. They're very well hidden, but let's start with Mask of Momentum. You know, it's doing exactly what you think it would do. It's empowering those chain combos by adding a card draw at the 3rd consecutive hit. It's giving that fuel to stop those pesky go again opponents. You're just chaining these things in order to get more momentum. From my research, it seems like a staple to most ninja decks. Let's move over to those brutes with Scab Skin Leather. This is a bit of a random card because you have to roll a dice and then it empowers the number of actions you get, so it's explosive on particular turns, giving that kind of unpredictable brute style. You can imagine like a berserker going wild every now and again, especially if you've played any tabletop role-playing games. You know that's the style that they're going for, is these berserkers or brutes just unleashing in one big flurry of attacks. I like this, I like the style it gives, so great card here. Now we're moving away from the brutes heroes and moving towards a different type of hero with a bit more strategy, I would say. And this is the warriors. So Brave Forge Braces. What is it doing? It's basically empowering your next attacks with +1 this turn. It's synergizing with some of the heroes' abilities, where you're just trying to get at that extra damage per turn. The more attacks you do, the more pressure with every swing of the weapon that you get. So great card for any warrior hero decks. Now to the last of the legendaries from Welcome to Rathe Set. This being the Tectonic Plating, a must-have for Bravo decks. It provides that defensive utilities and resource generation, allowing for Bravo to build up those devastating crippling crushes or spinal crush turns. I haven't played any Guardian heroes, and nor have I seen the seismic surge tokens. I'm gonna do more research into them. Though I don't feel comfortable enough to give my perspective until after that fact. So, I've had fun looking at the fabled and legendary cards of Welcome to Rathe. Now I'm gonna go and look at some of more easier cards to obtain and things that get played in the set more often. And I'm gonna start off by looking at Enlightened Strike. With Enlightened Strike, I can already immediately see why this gets played a lot. For 0 pitch, you only have to put a card from your hand to the bottom of your deck, and then you get an on-hit ability that plays into many different play styles. You can draw +2, or you get to go again. It has so much versatility. I can understand why it's being played so much, and it might even get into my Verdance deck, who knows. Next we have Sigil of Solace. Look at that beautiful card, and I can tell why people play this card. Any one of them makes a lot of sense. I'm also looking for stuff from my Verdance deck, so again, this could even get into it. Gain 3 life for 0 pitch cost, and potentially you gain 1 for Verdance. You just ping that little bit of damage, and it only takes 1 hit to finish the game. And I think we've all been there, where we've got 1 life, and the enemy pulls out something like this, and we just say GG. Next, we have Sink Below. It's a generic defense reaction, and again, I think I can understand why people play this card. You have a little bit of defense, but you also get to change out one of your cards in hand for something a bit more potent. I think it makes sense, and I can imagine it being used a lot. Again, that 4 defense, 0 cost, plus that hit ability makes a lot of sense. So, in general, I think this is a good card, and what I can see, it's a common, so one of the better commons that I've come across so far. Remembrance. You're pulling 3 cards from your graveyard, and then you banish Remembrance. If you have a graveyard interaction deck, a must-have, I would say. So, pretty fantastic card. Crippling Crush. So this is a specialization from Bravo. I think all specializations are basically a must-have for the corresponding deck. It's expensive, but Crippling Crush synergizes extremely well with any form of generating seismic surge tokens to reduce that cost, so you can get those powerful attacks off. Now I understand what a seismic token does, and I think it fits extremely well. So this is a must-have in Bravo decks. And it leads me on to my next card, Spinal Crush. Spinal Crush is just doing a little bit worse than what Bravo's speciality with Crippling Crush, but again, using those seismic surge tokens, you're reducing those costs and empowering this card to reach new heights, right? So again, building up that board state with those seismic surge tokens and to reduce the cost of these larger abilities, it makes perfect sense to me for why you want them in Bravo decks. Next we move from Bravo to Renar with the Alpha Rampage. Great attack action, and you get to trigger the Intimidate ability. So if I understand correctly, the Intimidate ability forces the opponent to put one of their cards face down so they can't use it in the defense stage. playing into that whole aspect where they're trying to intimidate the opponent, get them not able to use their defenses, so they're on the weaker side. But yeah, it's a very cool card, very powerful. For free pitch value, you get to do 9 attack. Extremely cost effective if I can do the calculations quickly in my head. I'm just looking at these cards, first impressions as well, so if I get things wrong, I get things wrong. Staying with the brutes, let's look at Blood Rush Bellow. Discard a card, get +2. But you should discard a card that has 6 strength or more, and then you get to draw 2 cards and you get to go again. Obviously you want to make sure you trigger that 6+, otherwise this card doesn't really do what you want it to do. It just doesn't get the full momentum, but if you can get that off, it's pretty powerful. I would say most brute decks probably want this card, and I can see why. It seems very powerful, so I understand why this is on the top of the Welcome to Rathe lists that I see. So staying with these hungry boys, we have a Savage Feast. These brutes are out picking some food. What can I say? Again, you're discarding a card at random. Obviously not great for your hand, but if you do get a 6+, you get to draw a card, so it's not completely a waste. But if you want to use blue, then you obviously get a better pitch value, but I think mostly people would go with red. So cool card, cool artwork, generally funny. I've played with berserkers or barbarians in tabletop role-playing games, and generally they eat whatever they can get their hands on, so I think it's just very fitting for the brutes to be similar vein as these guys, or these characters that I've seen, so it's funny. I think so far from what I've experienced of the different heroes, they're all very thematic and enjoyable to see, so let's see what we can look at next. Now moving over to Pummel. So we have 3 choices. I noticed that red and blue are being played mostly, so we'll just look at the red card and extrapolate what we can imagine the blue one will be. Probably a +2 here and a +2 there as well. So if you have a hammer or club, then you get to get +4. Again, target action cards with cost 2 or greater gains +4, and if this hits, the defending hero discards a card. So if you're running a club or hammer deck, you kind of want to play this. It makes sense. It's just that +4, empowering those attacks, and generally just getting a lot of value from this. So we have Snatch. I noticed that people play this only in red, or at least that's what I can get from the data. You draw a card if it hits. I can imagine people use this in aggro decks, trying to get off that quick card value by getting that attack. Even if one lands, people have to completely stop this flick flack if the next card you defend with this turn is a card with a combo against +2. Oh, that's nice. So again, this is a high value card if you can get it off with a combo, stopping a lot of damage with a 6+ here, and on the lower end getting it with a 4+. So I understand. I guess most decks kind of want some defense reaction cards, so yeah, if you're not using it for its value, the free resources it has on the blue is very nice. Again, what I also learned that some of the value combinations, so for example you only want to have a red or a yellow because you might overpay the costs otherwise of the pitch value. Razor Reflex, again it's attack reaction similar to Pummel, and you're going to get bonuses if you choose one of the effects. So mostly I guess if you're playing with a sword or dagger, you want to have this. Otherwise, you know, I see this less likely to be played. I could be wrong. So Iron Song Determination, target weapon gains +1 and dominate until the end of turn. Go again. I don't know what S is. Is this like a special? It looks pretty powerful card anyway. I kind of see the value gain here. For 0 cost, you get go again +1 to the target weapon. So if it's, as a warrior action, you want to attack multiple times in a turn, get this off. I don't know what Dominate does, so I'll do a little check on that and see what I can find. Okay, so I checked what Dominate does. It prevents you from defending against this with multiple defense cards. So it reduces that number. This gives you more likely to trigger on effect abilities as well. If you can combo out this with multiple attack actions, essentially you get more damage and your attacks get dominate. I think this is a very nice card. I can imagine it being played in many warrior decks where you have low damage but many attacks, so I think this is a cool looking card. During Fear specialization, your target weapon gains +2, and whether it hits you draw a card. Great combo card. I can imagine this being a must-have in their deck. I don't know how often this hero is played, but I'll do some research and let you know. I understand why people play this card. We have Warrior's Valor. Your next attack gets +3, and if it hits, the attack gets go again. Again, depending on what you want or to pay for the pitch value and how much strength, I can imagine this being used a lot. It's very cool. Okay, some more, this with Overpower. I can see, again, you want to empower your attacks with some on-hit effect is Reprise. If the defending hero has defended with a card from their hand, this chain link, the attack gains +2. Okay, that's cool. I understand that this is a lot of value gain here. I presume that the interaction happens is that someone does an attack, and in the combat chain I put my defensive card up, and then there's a warrior attack reaction, and then after the attack reaction there is a defense reaction in order to prevent extra damage like this getting through, because that's potentially a 6+ damage, and if you've only just defended with a free card with the shield free and they trigger this, that's 6+, that could be a game-winning combo. Maybe I haven't played enough to see this interaction, but from based on what I can imagine, that's how it works. Like you first do the attack, and then the individual does a defense, and after that this attack reaction happens, and then you get this potential 6+, and then after the final reaction of the attacks has been made, you do a defensive reaction. Cool, nice comboing, and lots of interactions between the players. It's one of the things I had problems with MTG and Netrunner. Sometimes you can play a whole game and never interact with your opponent, but here it just feels much more organic. It feels like we're actually having a duel. One hero is fighting another hero, they're reprising, they're doing a defensive ability, they're empowering their attacks. Very cool. This is the stuff that drew me to Flesh and Blood. Okay, Energy Potion. I can imagine this being used in many decks that are trying to go fast, or they want to empower stuff on the opponent's turn. So for example, if you have some instances that you need to get out, and this just gives you extra pitch value, this is cool. Or it could be used during an interaction where you have to get more pitch value. So I would need to play this in a deck to really understand, but I get the value of this card. So Disable in blue, it's a Guardian attack action. So for 5 cost, it's expensive, but if I remember, the Seismic Surge tokens reduces that pitch value cost associated with it. So if you have a board state where you have Seismic tokens, then you can reduce that value cost. So Crush, if disabled, deals 4 or more damage, put a card from their arsenal on the bottom of the deck. It's a bit of removal. I guess it's not truly removal, but it is changing the board state. So that's cool. I like that interaction. So then we have Buckling Blow in blue. It's expensive, but with the Guardians, they generate these Seismic Surge tokens more often than others. I don't know if it's actually these types of tokens are bound to one specific hero. I can do the research later on. Put a -1 on target equipment they control. if it does 4 more damage or over. Okay, that's pretty powerful because you can disrupt and destroy people's equipment. See, I didn't know this interaction existed, but I really like it. I think that even puts me more on the idea that Guardians attacking the other hero's armor as a very cool mechanic. I've not seen it yet, but that is really nice. I really like that because you're kind of like disabling some of the combos that can come off from heroes that not just depends on armor but utilizes them to finish combos. So that's cool. Does the controlling hero get to put that +/-1 counter on there, or is it the Guardian hero? Let me know in the comments, it would be cool to find out. This was the last card I looked at. Honestly, I've enjoyed my experience looking at these cards, but I'm just going to wrap this up into my deep dive into Welcome to Rathe. But the adventure doesn't stop here. I'll be exploring more of these cards in future videos, but I also want to be exploring more of the Flesh and Blood sets. I want to see the top ones now in a more to see what people are playing and why they're playing it, and trying to understand what heroes are utilizing those cards. And I want to highlight those cards that are being played for each one of those sets. But in the future, I would go deeper into them and maybe look at the more nuanced set cards that are not actually being utilized as much. Just because you never know what cool combos people could come up with. And I, as a not expert at deck building, I would like to get better at it and find those unique combos that could be fun to synergize with. But if a set catches my eye, then you'll bet I'll be grabbing a booster pack and opening some of those for my daily shorts. So stay tuned for that. But don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell so you don't miss a single pack opening or insights towards my journey as a new Flesh and Blood player. Until next time, adventurers, continue your journey into Rathe.